The woman in the white dress never made it to the altar, but she walked straight into a deal far more binding than marriage. If you want to see how far love can twist, how deep betrayal can cut, and whether a captive can choose her captor without losing herself, stay until the very end. Hit that like button, drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. And let's begin. Sit. The bridal suite smelled like roses and lies. Evelyn Carter stood in front of the full-length mirror, her hands trembling as she fumbled with the zipper at the small of her back. The silk dress was supposed to glide shut easily. That's what the boutique woman had promised. But now the teeth caught on fabric, and Evelyn's fingers were slick with nerves. She could hear the hum of voices downstairs, the clink of champagne glasses, the low murmur of 200 guests settling into white chairs on the estate lawn. Her wedding was in 43 minutes. She tugged at the zipper again, harder this time, and felt the fabric pull taut across her ribs. Her breath hitched. She'd imagined this moment 100 times, standing here, radiant, composed, ready to marry Daniel Hayes, the man who'd swept into her quiet life like a summer storm and made her believe she was worth something, that she was chosen. The door behind her opened. Evelyn didn't turn. She assumed it was her maid of honor, Christina, finally back from whatever errand had pulled her away 20 minutes ago. "Thank God," Evelyn breathed. "I can't get this thing. Hold still." The voice was male, low, unfamiliar. Evelyn froze. In the mirror, she watched a man step into the frame behind her, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a charcoal suit that fit like it had been tailored to intimidate. His hair was dark, slicked back with precision, and his face was all sharp angles and controlled stillness. But it was his eyes that stopped her breath. Ice blue, cold enough to burn. He moved closer. "Who the hell are you?" Evelyn's voice came out thin, uncertain. She tried to step away, but his hand was already at her back, fingers brushing the exposed skin above the zipper. "Don't move," he said quietly. And then, with a deliberate slowness that felt almost intimate, he pulled the zipper up. The dress closed around her like a trap. Evelyn's pulse hammered in her throat. She could see him clearly now in the reflection, his jaw tight, his expression unreadable, his gaze locked on hers in the glass. He didn't look away, didn't blink. "There," he said. His voice was soft, but it carried weight. "All ready." She spun around, pressing her back against the mirror. "Get out. I don't know who you are, but you need to leave. Now." The man didn't move. He studied her with the kind of patience that made her skin crawl, not leering, not threatening in the obvious way, but something worse, like he was cataloging her, memorizing her. "My name is Dominic Varela," he said. The name meant nothing to her. He tilted his head slightly as if surprised by her blank expression. "You really don't know." "Know what?" Evelyn's voice cracked. She glanced toward the door, calculating the distance, but he was between her and the only exit. "Look, I don't care who you are. This is my wedding day. You need to— Your groom isn't coming." The words landed like a slap. Evelyn stared at him. "What?" "Daniel Hayes," Dominic said, his tone clinical, detached. "He's not downstairs. He's not waiting at the altar. He's gone." Her laugh came out sharp and bitter. "That's insane. You're insane. Daniel wouldn't—" "He left 2 hours ago." "No. He took a private flight to the Caymans, boarded at 10:47 this morning. I have the manifest if you'd like to see it." Evelyn's hands were shaking now, her whole body vibrating with something she couldn't name: rage, terror, disbelief. "Why would you even say that? What do you want?" Dominic reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He held it out to her. She didn't take it. "Read it," he said. "No." "Evelyn." Her name in his mouth felt like a violation. "Read it." She snatched the paper from his hand, her fingers clumsy as she unfolded it. It was a bank statement, a wire transfer, dated 3 days ago. Daniel's name at the top. The amount made her stomach drop. $4 million. Transferred to an account in the Caymans. "That's not possible," she whispered. "It's very possible." Dominic stepped closer and Evelyn pressed herself harder against the mirror. "Your fiancé has been stealing from me for the last 18 months. Small amounts at first, enough to stay under the radar, but he got greedy." "Stealing from you?" Her voice was rising now, shrill. "I don't even know you." No, Dominic agreed, but your father did. The heir left the room. Evelyn stared at him. My father's dead. Is he? He died when I was 6. Dominic's expression didn't change. Your father, Michael Carter, embezzled $7 million from my family 15 years ago. He disappeared. We assumed he was dead too, but 3 months ago we found him. Evelyn's knees felt weak. You're lying. I'm not. My father... She couldn't finish the sentence. The man in her childhood memories was a ghost, a shadow, someone who'd left her and her mother with nothing but debt and shame. She hadn't spoken his name in years. He's alive, Dominic said. And when we found him, he didn't have the money, but he had something else. Evelyn's breath was coming too fast now, shallow and uneven. What? Dominic's gaze didn't waver. You. The word hung in the air like smoke. No, Evelyn said. No, that's... Your fiancé didn't find you by accident, Dominic continued, his voice calm, methodical. He was hired by your father to keep you close, keep you distracted, while the rest of the money was moved. Evelyn shook her head violently. Daniel loves me. Daniel is a criminal. You're insane, and you're collateral. The door opened again. This time 2 men entered, both large, both silent, both moving with the kind of efficiency that made Evelyn's stomach turn. They didn't look at her. They looked at Dominic, waiting. No, Evelyn said, her voice breaking. No, you can't. You're coming with me, Dominic said. Like hell I am. She lunged for the door, but one of the men was already there, blocking her path. She spun, looking for another way out, but the suite had no windows low enough to reach, no other exit. She was trapped. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, Dominic said. Evelyn's vision blurred with tears. Please, please, just let me go. I didn't do anything. I know. Then why? Because your father owes me a debt, Dominic said, and you're going to help me collect it. She tried to scream, but one of the men was faster. A hand clamped over her mouth, an arm locked around her waist, and then she was being lifted, carried, her heels kicking uselessly against the air. She thrashed, bit down hard on the hand covering her mouth, heard a grunt of pain, but it didn't matter. They were already moving, down the back staircase, through a service hallway, out a side door into blinding daylight. A black SUV idled at the curb, its engine purring. Evelyn tried to twist free, but the grip on her was ironclad. She caught a glimpse of the lawn, the white chairs, the floral arch, the guests still mingling, oblivious. She wanted to scream again, to make them see, but the hand was still pressed against her mouth, and then she was being shoved into the back seat of the SUV, the door slamming shut behind her. Dominic slid in beside her. The car pulled away smoothly, without urgency, as if this were just another Saturday errand. Evelyn pressed herself against the far door, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Her wedding dress was bunched around her legs. The train caught under her feet, and she felt ridiculous, helpless, furious. Where are you taking me? She demanded. Somewhere safe. Safe! She let out a wild, hysterical laugh. You just kidnapped me for my own wedding. I saved you from marrying a man who was using you. You don't know anything about me. I know enough. Evelyn's hands curled into fists. If you hurt me, I'm not going to hurt you. Then what do you want? Dominic turned to look at her fully for the first time since they'd gotten into the car. His expression was unreadable, but there was something in his eyes, something calculating and cold and far too certain. I want what I'm owed, he said, and until I get it, you're not going anywhere. Aunt, the estate was an hour outside Charleston, hidden behind iron gates and enough security to guard a small country. Evelyn had stopped crying somewhere around the 30-minute mark, her tears drying into silent, simmering rage. She'd tried the door handle twice, locked, of course, and considered throwing herself out of a moving vehicle before realizing how genuinely stupid that would be. So she sat, and she stared, and she tried to think. The SUV finally pulled through the gates and up a long gravel drive lined with oak trees. The house at the end was massive, stone and glass and modern lines that looked like they'd been ripped from an architecture magazine. It didn't look like a prison. It looked like money. The car stopped. Dominic got out first, then gestured for her to follow. Evelyn didn't move. Get out, he said. No. He sighed. a sound of mild irritation rather than anger, and leaned back into the car. You can walk, or I can have Marco carry you again. Your choice. I hate you. Noted. Now move. Evelyn climbed out, her dress dragging across the gravel. She felt absurd, standing there in a wedding gown in front of a stranger's mansion, her hair half fallen from its pins, her makeup smudged. She looked like a runaway bride in a bad movie. Dominic led her inside without another word. The interior was just as imposing as the exterior. High ceilings, dark wood floors, abstract art on the walls. Everything was clean, sharp, expensive. A woman appeared from a side hallway, older, dressed in black, her expression carefully neutral. This is Maria, Dominic said. She'll show you to your room. My room? Evelyn's voice was flat. You mean my cell? Call it whatever you want. Maria stepped forward, her eyes kind despite the situation. This way, miss. Evelyn didn't move. She looked at Dominic, at the man who'd just upended her entire life, and tried to find something, anything, human in his face. How long? She asked. How long what? How long are you keeping me here? Dominic slipped his hands into his pockets, his posture relaxed, unbothered. Until your father pays me back, or until I find another solution. And if he doesn't, then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Evelyn's jaw tightened. You can't just keep me here. I can, and I will. People will look for me. No, Dominic said quietly. They won't. The certainty in his voice made her skin crawl. Maria touched her elbow gently. Please, miss, come with me. Evelyn wanted to fight, wanted to scream, to run, to do something other than follow the stranger up a curved staircase like a lamb to slaughter. But she was exhausted, hollowed out, and she didn't know what else to do. So she followed. The room Maria led her to was on the second floor, at the end of a long hallway. It was large, tastefully decorated with a king-size bed and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the property. It looked like a guest room in a luxury hotel, except for the lock on the outside of the door. I'll bring you something to eat, Maria said softly. And some clothes, that dress. She trailed off, her expression sympathetic. Evelyn nodded numbly. Maria left, and the lock clicked into place. Evelyn stood in the center of the room, still in her wedding dress, and finally let herself break. She didn't sleep. She paced. She cried. She tore at the zipper Dominic had so carefully fastened, ripping the dress halfway down her back before giving up and collapsing onto the bed in a heap of silk and fury. Her mind replayed the day in jagged fragments, Daniel's smile that morning, the way he'd kissed her forehead and told her he'd see her at the altar, the sick certainty in Dominic's voice when he'd said your groom isn't coming. It couldn't be true. It couldn't. But what if it was? Evelyn pressed her palms against her eyes and tried to think. Tried to remember if there had been signs, red flags, anything that should have warned her. But Daniel had been perfect, charming, attentive, the kind of man who remembered her coffee order and texted her good morning every day. He'd proposed on a beach at sunset, for God's sake. Had it all been a lie? A soft knock on the door pulled her from her spiral. Miss Carter? Maria's voice muffled through the wood. I'm leaving a tray outside, and some clothes. Evelyn didn't answer. She heard footsteps retreat, then the faint sound of the lock disengaging. She waited, listening, and when she was sure Maria was gone, she opened the door a crack. A tray sat on the floor. Soup, bread, water. Next to it, a neatly folded pair of jeans and a sweater. Evelyn took both inside and locked the door again, even though she knew it was pointless. She changed out of the dress, letting it fall to the floor in a crumpled heap, and pulled on the jeans and sweater. They fit well enough. She ate the soup mechanically, tasting nothing, and drank the water because her throat was raw from crying. Then she went to the window. It was locked, of course, but even if it wasn't, she was 2 stories up, and the drop looked steep enough to break something important. She pressed her forehead against the glass and stared out at the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, 200 people were probably still at the venue, confused, whispering, wondering where the bride had gone. And Daniel? Daniel was in the Caymans with $4 million. Evelyn's hands curled into fists against the glass. If Dominic was telling the truth, if Daniel had really used her, really stolen from this man, really left her to take the fall, then she was going to find him, and she was going to make him pay. But first she had to get out of here. 3 days passed. Evelyn had expected violence, or at least cruelty, but what she got instead was silence. Maria brought her meals 3 times a day, always polite, always quiet. Evelyn tried to talk to her, to ask questions, but the woman offered nothing beyond basic pleasantries. The doors stayed locked, the windows stayed sealed, and Dominic stayed gone. She didn't see him again until the 4th day. She was sitting by the window, staring at nothing, when the lock clicked and the door opened. Dominic stepped inside, dressed more casually this time. Dark jeans, a black t-shirt, his hair slightly less severe. He looked almost human. Evelyn didn't stand. "Comfortable?" he asked. "Go to hell." He closed the door behind him and leaned against it, arms crossed. "I thought you might want an update." "I don't want anything from you." "Your father's been contacted." That got her attention. She turned to look at him, her expression hard. "And?" "And he's willing to negotiate." Evelyn's stomach twisted. "So you're just going to trade me? Like I'm some kind of—" "I'm not trading you," Dominic interrupted. "I'm offering him a choice. He pays what he owes, or you stay here until he does." "And if he doesn't pay?" Dominic's gaze didn't waver. "Then we find another arrangement." "What does that mean?" He didn't answer. Evelyn stood, crossing the room until she was directly in front of him. She was tall, but he was taller, and she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "You can't keep me here forever. I can keep you here as long as I need to." "Why?" The question came out sharper than she intended. "Why me? If my father's the one who stole from you, why am I the one locked in this room?" "Because your father doesn't care about money," Dominic said simply. "But he might care about you." "He doesn't. We'll see." Evelyn's hands trembled with the effort of not hitting him. "I hate you." "You've mentioned that." "I mean it." Dominic studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he straightened, moving past her toward the door. "Dinner's at 7. You're welcome to join me." "I'd rather starve." "Suit yourself." He left, locking the door behind him. Evelyn stood in the center of the room, shaking with rage, and realized something that made her blood run cold. She wasn't just angry at Dominic, she was angry at herself. Because part of her, some small traitorous part, had wanted to say yes. She went to dinner, not because she forgave him, not because she trusted him, but because sitting alone in that room for another night felt like surrendering, and Evelyn Carter had never been good at surrender. Maria came to get her at 6:50, leading her downstairs to a dining room that was somehow both grand and intimate. A long table, candlelight, 2 place settings at opposite ends. Dominic was already seated. He stood when she entered, a gesture that felt absurdly formal given the circumstances, and gestured to the chair across from him. Evelyn sat. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. A man she didn't recognize brought out the first course, some kind of salad with ingredients she couldn't identify, and poured wine into her glass. She didn't touch it. "You're not eating," Dominic observed. "I'm not hungry." "You haven't eaten in 2 days. How would you know?" "Maria tells me everything." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "So she's a spy." "She's concerned." "She's your employee." "She's both." Evelyn picked up her fork, more out of spite than appetite, and stabbed at the salad. It tasted like nothing. "Tell me about Daniel," Dominic said. She looked up sharply. "No." "Humor me." "Why?" "Because I'm curious." Evelyn set down her fork. "You want to know about the man you claim was using me? Fine. He was kind, he was funny, he made me feel like I mattered, and now you're telling me it was all a lie." "It was." "You don't know that." "I do." "How?" Dominic leaned back in his chair, his expression calm. "Because I watched him. For 6 months I watched him court you, charm you, propose to you. And I know exactly why he did it." Evelyn's hands clenched in her lap. "You're a monster." "Maybe." "Definitely." Dominica's mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but close. "You're angry." "Of course I'm angry." "Good. Angry is better than broken." Evelyn stared at him, thrown. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you're stronger than you think you are." "Don't patronize me." "I'm not." "Then what are you doing?" Dominic picked up his wine glass, studying the dark liquid inside. I'm waiting. For what? For you to realize that you're not a victim. Evelyn's laugh was bitter. I was kidnapped from my own wedding. How is that not being a victim? Because you're still here, Dominic said. Still fighting, still trying to figure out how to survive this. I don't have a choice. Everyone has a choice. Evelyn stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I'm done. Sit down. No. Evelyn, I said no. She turned and walked out, half expecting him to stop her, but he didn't. She made it all the way back to her room before Maria appeared, unlocking the door without a word. Evelyn stepped inside, and the lock clicked shut behind her. She pressed her back against the door and closed her eyes, her heart pounding. Angry is better than broken. She hated that he was right. A week passed, then 2. Evelyn stopped asking to leave, stopped demanding answers. Instead, she watched. She listened. She learned. The estate ran like clockwork. Maria managed the household. Marco and 2 other men, silent, efficient, dangerous, handled security. And Dominic moved through it all like a king in his castle, calm and controlled, and utterly untouchable. But Evelyn noticed things. She noticed the way Maria softened when she talked about Dominic, the way Marco deferred to him without question. She noticed the phone calls he took late at night, his voice low and clipped, and the tension in his shoulders when he thought no one was looking. She noticed that he wasn't a monster. He was something worse. He was human. And that scared her more than anything. On the 15th day, Dominic found her in the library. She'd discovered it by accident, a room off the main hallway, lined with books and flooded with afternoon light. Maria had left the door unlocked, and Evelyn had slipped inside, hungry for something, anything, to distract her. She was curled up in a chair by the window, halfway through a novel she didn't care about, when Dominic appeared in the doorway. "You read," he said. It wasn't a question. Evelyn didn't look up. What gave it away? Most people don't sit still that long. Most people aren't prisoners. Dominic stepped into the room, moving to the shelves and running his fingers along the spines. You're not a prisoner. Then what am I? A guest. Evelyn finally looked at him. Guests can leave. Not yet. When? When it's safe. Safe for who? Dominic pulled a book from the shelf, something old, leather-bound, and turned it over in his hands. Your father made contact again. Evelyn's pulse quickened. And? He's stalling. Of course he is. You don't sound surprised. I'm not. Evelyn closed her book, setting it aside. He's a coward. Always has been. Dominic looked at her, something shifting in his expression. You really don't care about him, do you? Why would I? He left me when I was 6. I don't even remember his face. And yet here you are, paying for his mistakes. Evelyn stood, crossing her arms. Is that supposed to make me feel sorry for myself? No, it's supposed to make you angry. I'm already angry. Good. They stared at each other across the room, the air between them charged with something Evelyn couldn't name. Why do you care? She asked finally. About what? About whether I'm angry or broken or whatever else you think I should be. Dominic set the book down, his gaze steady. Because broken people are easy to control, and I don't want to control you. Then what do you want? He didn't answer. Evelyn felt something shift in her chest, something dangerous and unwelcome. She turned away, her hands trembling. I need to go. Evelyn, don't. She left the library before he could finish, her heart pounding, her mind spinning. Because she'd just realized something terrifying. She didn't hate him anymore. And that was so much worse. The realization that she didn't hate him should have been a warning. Instead, it became a slow burn she couldn't shake. Evelyn spent the next 3 days avoiding Dominic entirely. She took her meals in her room, declined Maria's invitations to join him for dinner, and stayed away from the library. She told herself it was strategy, that keeping her distance would help her think clearly, figure out an escape plan, maintain some semblance of control. But the truth was simpler and far more pathetic. She was afraid of what she might say if she saw him again. On the 4th day, Maria appeared at her door with a garment bag draped over one arm and an expression that suggested Evelyn's self-imposed isolation was about to end. "Mr. Varela requests your presence this evening," Maria said, stepping inside without waiting for permission. Evelyn looked up from the book she'd been pretending to read. "Tell him I'm busy." He anticipated you'd say that. Maria laid the garment bag across the bed and unzipped it with brisk efficiency. Inside was a dress, midnight blue, simple but elegant, the kind of thing that cost more than Evelyn's monthly rent used to. "He also said to tell you it's not a request." "Of course it's not." "There's a car coming at 7. You'll want to shower." Evelyn crossed her arms. "And if I refuse?" Maria's smile was patient, almost sympathetic. "Then Marco will carry you to the car in whatever you're currently wearing." Mr. Varela was very specific about that. "He's unbelievable." "He's determined." Maria smoothed the dress with practiced hands. "There's a difference." Evelyn wanted to argue, but she could see it would be pointless. Maria had already moved on to laying out shoes, heels, black, expensive, and setting a small cosmetics bag on the dresser. "Where are we going?" Evelyn asked, hating how resigned she sounded. "I don't ask questions I won't get answers to, miss. Neither should you." After Maria left, Evelyn stood in the center of the room and stared at the dress like it might bite her. She could refuse, could lock herself in the bathroom and force them to break down the door. But what would that accomplish? She'd still end up wherever Dominic wanted her, just with less dignity. She showered, put on the dress, did her makeup with shaking hands, trying not to think about the last time she'd gotten ready like this, for a wedding that never happened, for a man who'd never loved her. At 6:55, she heard footsteps in the hallway. The lock disengaged. Dominic stepped inside and Evelyn's breath caught despite herself. He was in a full suit, black, perfectly tailored, his dark hair swept back in that way that made him look like he'd stepped out of some crime thriller. But it was his expression that stopped her. He looked at her the way someone might look at a painting they were considering purchasing, assessing, appreciating, but ultimately detached. "You look good," he said. "Don't." "It's an observation, not a proposition." Evelyn grabbed the small clutch Maria had left for her, her movements jerky. "Where are we going?" "Dinner." "We have dinner here." "Not tonight." "Why?" Dominic's mouth curved slightly. "Because you've been hiding from me for 4 days, and I'm tired of it." Heat flooded her cheeks. "I haven't been hiding. You've been avoiding me. Same thing. Maybe I just don't want to be around you." "I don't care what you want." He said it calmly, without malice, and somehow that made it worse. "You're coming with me. We can do this easily, or we can do it the hard way. Your choice." Evelyn's hands curled into fists. "You're such a—" "Yes, I know. Let's go." He turned and walked out, clearly expecting her to follow. And because she didn't have any other options, she did. The car was waiting outside, the same black SUV that had brought her here weeks ago. Marco stood by the passenger door, his expression as unreadable as ever. Dominic slid into the back seat first, and Evelyn hesitated only a moment before climbing in after him. The door closed. The engine started. They pulled away from the estate. Evelyn kept her gaze fixed on the window, watching the darkening landscape blur past. They drove for almost 40 minutes in silence, the tension in the car thick enough to choke on. Finally, Dominic spoke. "You're angry." Brilliant observation. "Why?" She turned to look at him, incredulous. "Why? You dragged me out of my room, forced me into a dress, and now you're taking me somewhere I don't want to go. And you're asking why I'm angry? You didn't want to stay in that room forever. I also didn't want to be kidnapped, but here we are." Dominic's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "You're not kidnapped." "Then what am I?" "Complicated." Evelyn let out a harsh laugh. "That's one word for it." They lapsed back into silence, but this time it felt different. Charged, brittle, like something was about to snap. The restaurant they pulled up to was the kind of place Evelyn had only ever seen in magazines. Understated exterior, valet parking, the sort of clientele that wore wealth like a second skin. Dominic got out first and extended a hand to help her from the car. She ignored it. Inside, they were greeted by a man in an immaculate suit who addressed Dominic by name and led them through the main dining room to a private area in the back. The table was set for two, candlelight flickering between them, wine already poured. Evelyn sat stiffly, her hands folded in her lap. Relax, Dominic said, settling into his chair with infuriating ease. I'm perfectly relaxed. You look like you're about to bolt. Maybe I am. You won't. How do you know? He picked up his wine glass, studying her over the rim. Because you're curious. Evelyn's pulse kicked. About what? About why I brought you here, about what happens next. About me. I'm not curious about you. Liar. She wanted to throw something at him. Instead, she picked up her own wine glass and took a long drink, letting the bitter warmth steady her. A waiter appeared, reciting specials in a low, practiced voice. Dominic ordered for both of them without asking what she wanted, and Evelyn bit back the urge to make a scene. When they were alone again, Dominic leaned back in his chair, his gaze never leaving her face. Tell me about your mother, he said. The question caught her off guard. What? Your mother. What was she like? Evelyn's throat tightened. Why do you want to know? Because you never talk about her. You've known me for 3 weeks. There's a lot I don't talk about. Humor me. Evelyn set down her glass, her hands trembling slightly. She died when I was 19. Cancer. She spent 2 years fighting it, and then one day she just didn't wake up. I'm sorry. Don't be. You didn't know her. That doesn't mean I can't be sorry. Evelyn looked away, her vision blurring. She was kind. Too kind. After my father left, she worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat, and she never once complained. She believed in people, even when they didn't deserve it. Like your father. Like everyone. Dominic was quiet for a moment. And Daniel? Evelyn's jaw clenched. What about him? Did she ever meet him? No, she died before we met. Would she have liked him? The question hit harder than it should have. Evelyn thought about her mother, about the way she could see through people, the way she'd always known when Evelyn was lying, even about small things. No, Evelyn said finally, she wouldn't have. Why? Because she would have seen what I didn't, that he was too perfect, too careful, that no one falls in love that easily unless they want something. Dominic's expression softened, just slightly. You're not stupid for missing it. Aren't I? No, you're human. The waiter returned with their first course, and Evelyn focused on the food in front of her, grateful for the distraction. They ate in silence for a while, the tension between them shifting into something quieter, less hostile. Why did you really bring me here? Evelyn asked eventually. Dominic set down his fork. Because you needed to get out of that house. I needed to go home. You don't have a home anymore. The words were brutal in their honesty, and Evelyn felt them like a physical blow. That's not true. Your apartment was paid for by Daniel. Your job was part-time, barely enough to cover groceries. Your mother's gone. Your father's a criminal. Where exactly do you think you'd go? Evelyn's hands shook. You don't know anything about my life. I know more than you think. Because you've been watching me. Yes. For how long? 6 months. Evelyn's stomach turned. You're insane. I'm thorough. You're a stalker. I'm a businessman protecting my interests. I'm not your interest. You are now. Evelyn stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Several heads turned in the main dining room, but she didn't care. I can't do this. Dominic remained seated, his expression calm. Sit down. No. Evelyn, I want to leave, right now. We haven't finished eating. I don't care. Dominic stood slowly, his movements deliberate. He stepped around the table and stopped directly in front of her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive that made her head spin. You want to leave? He said quietly. Fine. We'll leave. But you're going back to the estate with me, and tomorrow we're going to have a conversation about what happens next. And you're going to listen. Understood? Evelyn tilted her chin up, refusing to back down even though her heart was racing. I don't take orders from you. Yes, you do. Go to hell. His mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Already there. They stared at each other for a long, breathless moment. Then Dominic stepped back, gestured toward the door, and said, After you. The drive back was worse than the drive there. Evelyn pressed herself against the door, as far from Dominic as the back seat would allow, and tried to ignore the way her skin felt too hot, her pulse too fast. She hated him. She had to hate him. But when they pulled up to the estate and he helped her out of the car, his hand warm and steady around hers, she didn't pull away as quickly as she should have. Maria was waiting in the foyer, her expression carefully neutral. "I'll show you to your room, miss." "I know where it is," Evelyn said, her voice tight. She started toward the stairs, but Dominic's voice stopped her. "Evelyn." She turned. He stood at the base of the staircase, hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable. "For what it's worth, I am sorry." "For what?" "That you're here. That this is happening to you. That your life got turned upside down because of things you didn't do." Evelyn's throat burned. "If you were really sorry, you'd let me go." "I can't." "You mean you won't." "I mean I can't. Not yet." "When?" "When it's safe." "You keep saying that, but safe for who, Dominic? You or me?" He didn't answer. Evelyn turned and walked upstairs, her heels echoing against the marble, and didn't look back. Days bled into each other after that. Evelyn stopped counting how long she'd been at the estate, stopped asking when she could leave. Instead, she focused on survival. She started exploring the house during the day when Dominic was locked in his office handling whatever business required a man like him. She found the kitchen, massive, professional grade, mostly unused, and started cooking. Not because Maria asked, but because it gave her something to do, something to control. Maria watched the first time, hovering uncertainly in the doorway, as Evelyn pulled ingredients from the fridge and started dicing vegetables with more aggression than necessary. "You cook," Maria observed. "My mother taught me." "What are you making?" "Does it matter?" Maria smiled faintly. "I suppose not." After that, Maria left her alone, and Evelyn cooked pasta, stir-fry, roasted chicken, things that required focus and precision and kept her hands busy. She left the finished dishes on the counter and retreated to her room, never eating what she made. But they always disappeared. On the 6th day of her cooking experiment, Dominic appeared in the kitchen doorway while she was elbow-deep in bread dough. "You've been making dinner," he said. Evelyn didn't look up. "I've been making food. What you do with it is your business. It's good. I don't need your approval." "I wasn't offering approval. I was stating a fact." Evelyn punched the dough harder than necessary, flour dusting her hands. "Was there something you wanted, or are you just here to hover?" Dominic stepped into the kitchen, moving to the counter where she'd laid out ingredients for some kind of sauce. He picked up a tomato, turning it over in his hands. "Your father contacted me again." Evelyn's hands stilled. "And?" "He's willing to meet." Her pulse quickened. "When?" 3 days. "Where?" "Neutral ground. A hotel in Savannah." Evelyn set down the dough, wiping her hands on a towel. "And me? Am I part of this meeting?" "That depends." "On what?" "On whether you want to be." She stared at him. "Why would you give me a choice?" Dominic set down the tomato, his expression unreadable. "Because this is your life too, and despite what you think of me, I'm not interested in making decisions for you that you should make yourself." "That's rich, coming from the man who kidnapped me." "I didn't kidnap you. I removed you from a dangerous situation." "You keep telling yourself that." Dominic's jaw tightened. "Do you want to see him or not?" Evelyn turned away, staring out the window at the sprawling grounds. Did she want to see her father? The man who'd abandoned her, stolen millions, and apparently sold her out to save his own skin? "Yes," she said finally. "I want to see him." "Why?" "Because I want to look him in the eye and ask him if it was worth it." Dominic was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "He won't have a good answer." "I don't care. I still want to ask." 3 days later, they drove to Savannah. Evelyn sat in the back seat of the SUV, dressed in jeans and a sweater Maria had laid out for her hands folded tightly in her lap. Dominic sat beside her, silent and watchful, his presence both comforting and infuriating. Marco drove, and another man Evelyn didn't recognize sat in the passenger seat. Both were armed. She'd seen the holsters when they'd gotten into the car. "What happens if this goes wrong?" she asked quietly. Dominic glanced at her. "It won't." "You don't know that. I'm prepared for every possibility." "That's not reassuring." His mouth curved slightly. It's the best I can offer. The hotel was upscale but not flashy, the kind of place designed for business meetings and discreet transactions. They parked in the underground garage, and Marco led them to a service elevator that took them directly to the third floor. The suite they entered was large, impersonal, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A man stood by the window, his back to them, his posture tense. He turned when they entered. Evelyn's breath caught. She hadn't seen her father in 17 years, but she recognized him instantly. Older, grayer, worn down by years of running and hiding, but unmistakably him. His eyes, the same brown as hers, widened when he saw her. "Evie," he said, his voice rough. "Don't call me that." Michael Carter flinched. "You look so much like your mother." "Don't talk about her either," so Dominic stepped forward, positioning himself slightly between Evelyn and her father. "You wanted this meeting. Talk." Michael's gaze flicked to Dominic, then back to Evelyn. "I didn't know he was going to take you. I swear. I didn't know." "But you knew about Daniel," Evelyn said, her voice shaking. "You knew he was using me. I needed time. You needed to save yourself." The words came out cold, flat. "And you didn't care what happened to me." "That's not true." "Isn't it?" Michael took a step toward her, and Marco moved instantly, blocking his path. Michael raised his hands in surrender. "I tried to protect you. After your mother died, I stayed away because I thought it was safer. I thought if I wasn't in your life, you'd be okay." "I was never okay," Evelyn said. "I spent 19 years wondering why you left, wondering if it was my fault. And now I find out it was because you're a thief and a coward." "Evie, my name is Evelyn." Michael's face crumpled. "I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this." "I know, but I'm trying. I've been trying to get the money together, to pay him back, to get you out of this. How much do you have?" Dominic's voice cut through the room like a blade. Michael hesitated. "2 million, maybe more if I liquidate some assets. You owe me 7 million, plus interest." I know, I just need more time." "You've had 15 years. Please." Michael looked at Evelyn, his eyes desperate. "Please, Evie, tell him I'll pay. Tell him I'll get the money." Evelyn stared at the man who was supposed to be her father and felt nothing but a cold, hollow ache. "You don't get to ask me for anything," she said. "You lost that right a long time ago." Michael's shoulders sagged. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing. I don't want anything from you." She turned to Dominic. "Can we go?" Dominic studied her for a moment, then nodded. "We're done here." They left Michael Carter standing in that suite, looking small and broken and utterly alone. Evelyn didn't cry until they were back in the car. Then the tears came in harsh, choking sobs that she couldn't control, and she hated herself for it. Hated that she still cared, that some part of her had hoped he'd have a better explanation, a better excuse. Dominic didn't say anything. He just handed her a handkerchief and let her fall apart. When they got back to the estate, Evelyn went straight to her room and locked the door. She didn't come out for 2 days. On the third day, there was a knock. "Miss Carter?" Maria's voice gentle. "Mr. Varela would like to see you." "Tell him I'm not interested." "He said you'd say that. He also said if you don't come down, he's coming up." Evelyn dragged herself off the bed, splashed water on her face, and went downstairs. Dominic was in his office, standing by the window with a drink in his hand. He turned when she entered. "You look terrible," he said. "Thanks." He gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Sit." "I'd rather stand." "Sit anyway." Evelyn sat, too tired to argue. Dominic moved to his desk, setting down his glass. "Your father transferred the 2 million this morning." Evelyn's stomach twisted. And it's not enough, but it's a start. "So what happens now?" Dominic leaned against the desk, his arms crossed. "That depends on you." "On me?" "You have options, Evelyn. You can stay here until your father pays the rest, or you can leave." Her heart stopped. "Leave? I'll give you money, enough to start over somewhere new, a different city, a different name if you want. You walk away, and this is over." Evelyn stared at him. "Why would you do that?" "Because keeping you here isn't solving anything, and I'm tired of watching you suffer." "So this is charity?" "This is pragmatism." Evelyn stood, her hands shaking. "And if I stay?" Dominic's gaze locked on hers. Then you stay, and we figure out what that means. What does it mean? I don't know yet. Evelyn's chest felt tight. She should leave, should take the money and run and never look back. But the thought of walking away, of never seeing him again, made something inside her twist painfully. I need time to think, she said. You have 24 hours. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. Evelyn. She looked back. Whatever you decide, I won't stop you. She nodded and walked out, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break. 24 hours felt like both an eternity and no time at all. Evelyn spent most of it in her room, pacing circles into the carpet, weighing her options like they were stones in her hands. Leave or stay? Freedom or what? She didn't even know what staying meant. Dominic had been deliberately vague, and that ambiguity terrified her almost as much as the choice itself. She could leave. Start over in some city where no one knew her name, where Daniel's betrayal and her father's crimes were just bad memories she could bury deep enough to forget. She could build a life, small, quiet, safe. But the thought made her feel empty, because somewhere in the last few weeks, this place had stopped feeling like a prison. Maria's kindness, the rhythm of cooking in that enormous kitchen, even the arguments with Dominic, they'd become familiar. And familiarity, she was learning, could be dangerous. By the time the sun set on her decision day, Evelyn still didn't know what she was going to say. She found Dominic in the library, sitting in the same chair where she'd first started avoiding him weeks ago. He had a book open on his lap, but he wasn't reading. His gaze was fixed on the window, watching the last rays of light fade from the sky. He looked up when she entered. Well? He said. Evelyn crossed her arms, trying to look more certain than she felt. I'm staying. Something shifted in his expression. Relief, maybe, though it was gone too quickly to be sure. Why? Because I don't have anywhere else to go. That's not a good reason. It's the truth. Dominic closed the book and set it aside. You could have anywhere. I meant what I said about the money. I know you did. Evelyn moved closer, stopping a few feet away from his chair. But running away doesn't change anything. My father's still out there. Daniel's still out there. And I'm tired of letting other people decide what happens to me. So this is about control. This is about not being a victim anymore. Dominic stood, and the room suddenly felt smaller. He was close enough now that she could see the faint lines at the corners of his eyes, the shadow of exhaustion he tried to hide. If you stay, things will change. How? You'll have more freedom, access to the rest of the house, no more locked doors. That's it? For now. Evelyn studied him, trying to read the subtext he wasn't saying. And what do you get out of this? Peace of mind. That's a lie. His mouth curved slightly. Maybe. Dominic, you're staying because you want to, he said. That's enough. It wasn't enough, not really, but Evelyn didn't push. She nodded and turned to leave, but his voice stopped her at the door. Evelyn? She looked back. Thank you. The words were so unexpected, so uncharacteristically soft, that she didn't know how to respond. So she just left, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. The next morning, Maria appeared at her door with a key. Mr. Varela wanted you to have this, she said, pressing the small brass key into Evelyn's palm. It's for your room. You can lock it from the inside now, but not the outside. Evelyn stared at the key. It was such a small thing, but it felt monumental. He's really letting me have this? He keeps his promises, miss. Even the ones that cost him something. After Maria left, Evelyn sat on the edge of her bed and turned the key over in her hands. She could leave her room whenever she wanted now. Could explore the estate without Marco shadowing her every move. Could walk out the front door if she chose to. But she didn't. Instead, she went to the kitchen and started cooking. Over the next 2 weeks, a strange routine developed. Evelyn cooked and Dominic ate what she made. Sometimes he joined her in the kitchen, leaning against the counter with a glass of wine, asking questions about recipes or her mother's cooking. Other times he stayed away, giving her space, but she always found the dishes empty the next morning. They started having dinner together most nights, not in the formal dining room, but at the kitchen island, plates balanced on their laps, conversation flowing easier than it should have. Tell me about your business, Evelyn said one evening, watching him polish off the last of the risotto she'd made. Dominic raised an eyebrow. You really want to know? I'm living in your house. Seems like I should understand what you actually do. Most people don't ask. I'm not most people. He smiled at that, a real smile that softened the hard edges of his face. No, you're not. He told her some of it, the legitimate businesses, the hotels and real estate holdings, the investments that kept money flowing in predictable streams. But he left out the darker parts, the pieces she could guess at, but didn't need confirmed. You're being careful, Evelyn observed. I'm being smart. You think I'd run if you told me the truth? I think you'd have questions I don't want to answer. Evelyn set down her fork. I already know you're not a good man, Dominic. You don't have to protect me from that. His gaze locked on hers. Maybe I'm not protecting you. Maybe I'm protecting myself. From what? From you deciding I'm worse than you thought. The vulnerability in his voice caught her off guard. She'd seen him angry, seen him cold and calculating, but this raw honesty was something new. I don't think you're worse, she said quietly. I think you're complicated. That's a kind way of putting it. It's the truth. They finished dinner in comfortable silence, and when Dominic stood to clear the plates, Evelyn found herself not wanting him to leave. Stay, she said. He paused, dishes in hand. What? Just stay, for a while. He set the plates down and sat back on the stool beside her. They didn't talk much after that, just sat together in the warm kitchen light, and it felt like the most normal thing in the world. But normal didn't last. 3 days later, everything shattered. Evelyn was in the library when she heard raised voices from Dominic's office. She told herself to stay out of it, that whatever was happening wasn't her business. But curiosity, and something deeper, something that felt dangerously close to concern, pulled her down the hallway. The office door was slightly ajar. Through the gap, she could see Dominic standing behind his desk, his posture rigid, his face a mask of cold fury. Marco stood across from him, along with 2 men Evelyn didn't recognize. One of them was bleeding from a cut above his eye. Tell me again, Dominic said, his voice deadly quiet. The bleeding man swallowed hard. He tried to run. We caught him at the airport. And? He fought back, said he wasn't going down without taking someone with him. So you brought him here, to my home. We didn't have a choice. He knows too much. If he talks, then you should have handled it before it became my problem. Evelyn's blood went cold. She knew she should leave, should walk away before she saw something she couldn't unsee, but her feet wouldn't move. Dominic pulled something from his desk drawer. A gun. He checked the chamber with practiced ease, then looked at the bleeding man with an expression that made Evelyn's stomach turn. Where is he now? Dominic asked. Basement. Secured. Good. I'll deal with it. Sir, if you want us to. I said I'll deal with it. The men nodded and filed out, passing close enough to the door that Evelyn had to press herself against the wall to avoid being seen. Her heart hammered so hard she thought they'd hear it, but they walked past without noticing. When they were gone, she heard Dominic's footsteps moving toward the door. She should have run, should have made it back to her room before he saw her. But she didn't. The door opened, and Dominic stopped short when he saw her standing there. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. How much did you hear? He asked finally. Enough. His jaw tightened. Then you should go to your room. What are you going to do to him? That's not your concern. Dominic, go to your room, Evelyn. Are you going to kill him? The question hung between them like a guillotine blade. Dominic's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Something dark and tired and resigned. Yes. Evelyn's breath caught. She'd known, on some level, what he was capable of. Had seen the guns, the security, the careful control he maintained over everything in his world. But knowing and seeing were different things. Why? She whispered. Because he's a threat. Because he knows things that could destroy everything I've built. Because in my world, loose ends get people killed. He paused. People like you. Don't use me as an excuse. It's not an excuse. It's a fact. Evelyn wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold. I don't know if I can stay here. Knowing this. Then leave. Dominic's voice was flat, emotionless. The offer still stands. I'll give you the money, and you can walk out that door right now. Just like that? Just like that. Evelyn looked at him, at this man who'd torn her life apart and somehow become the center of it, and felt something inside her crack. I don't want to leave, she said. Then don't. But I can't just pretend I don't know what you're about to do. Dominic stepped closer, his gaze intense. I'm not asking you to pretend. I'm asking you to accept that this is who I am, what I do. And if you can't live with that, then you need to go, because I'm not going to change. Evelyn's eyes burned. I know. So what's it going to be? She wanted to run, wanted to take the money and disappear and never think about Dominic Varela again. But the thought of leaving made her chest ache in a way that terrified her. I need time, she said. You don't have time. You either stay or you go, right now. That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair. Evelyn closed her eyes, her mind spinning. Then she opened them and looked at Dominic with something that felt like surrender. I'm staying. Dominic's expression didn't change, but she saw the tension leave his shoulders. Why? Because I'm terrified of you, and I'm terrified of leaving you, and I don't know which one scares me more. Her voice broke. And because I think you're the worst thing that's ever happened to me, and I still don't want to lose you. The words hung in the air between them, raw and honest and impossible to take back. Dominic reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cupped her face in his hands. His touch was gentle, almost reverent, and it made her want to cry. I'm going to finish what I started, he said quietly. And when I come back, we're going to talk, really talk, about what this is and what it means. Okay? Evelyn nodded, not trusting her voice. He pressed a kiss to her forehead, brief, chaste, devastating. And then he was gone. Evelyn sank to the floor in the hallway and let herself shake apart. She didn't know how long she sat there. Time felt meaningless, slippery. But eventually, Maria found her. Come on, miss, Maria said gently, helping her to her feet. Let's get you to bed. I heard him, Evelyn whispered. I heard what he's going to do. Maria's expression was sad, but unsurprised. I know. How do you stand it, knowing what he is? Because I also know who he is. Maria guided her down the hallway toward her room. Mr. Varela is not a good man, but he's not a monster either. He's just surviving in a world that doesn't forgive weakness. That doesn't make it right. No, it doesn't, but it makes it understandable. Maria settled her onto the bed, pulling a blanket over her like she was a child. He cares about you, miss. More than he should. More than is probably safe for either of you. I know, Evelyn said. That's what scares me. Then be scared, but don't run. Not yet. After Maria left, Evelyn lay in the dark and waited for Dominic to come back. He didn't return until just before dawn. Evelyn heard his footsteps in the hallway, heard him pause outside her door. She held her breath, waiting to see if he'd knock. But he didn't. After a moment, his footsteps continued down the hall to his own room. She should have been relieved. Instead, she felt hollow. The next morning, Evelyn found Dominic in the kitchen, making coffee with the kind of mechanical precision that suggested he hadn't slept. He looked up when she entered. You're awake. I never really slept. He poured a second cup of coffee and handed it to her. Their fingers brushed, and Evelyn felt the contact like a spark. Are you okay? She asked. I'm fine. That's a lie. Dominic's mouth twitched. Maybe. They stood in silence for a moment, drinking coffee that was too hot and too bitter. I meant what I said last night, Evelyn said finally. About staying. I know. But I need you to be honest with me. About everything. No more half-truths or careful omissions. Dominic set down his cup. What do you want to know? Everything. Your business. Your past. What you did last night. Evelyn. I'm serious. If I'm going to stay here, if I'm going to... She stopped, not sure how to finish that sentence. I need to know who you really are. Dominic was quiet for a long time. Then he said, Okay. Over the next hour, he told her things she suspected he'd never told anyone. About growing up in his father's shadow, learning early that power and fear were the only currencies that mattered. About the first time he'd killed someone, a man who'd threatened his sister, back when Dominic was barely 20. About building an empire on blood and calculation and a willingness to do what others wouldn't. He didn't make excuses, didn't try to justify or soften the edges. He just laid it all out, brutal and honest, and waited for her to run. But she didn't. "Say something," he said when he was finished. Evelyn looked at him, at the man who'd destroyed her life and somehow become essential to it, and felt something shift inside her chest. "I don't forgive you," she said, "for taking me, for keeping me here, for any of it. I'm not asking for forgiveness, but I understand why you did it, and I think you're trying to be better than you were." "I'm not." "You are. You just don't want to admit it." Dominic's expression was unreadable. "And that's enough for you?" "I don't know, but it's enough for now." He reached across the counter and took her hand, threading their fingers together. The gesture was simple, almost innocent, but it felt like a promise. "I have to go to Monaco next week," he said. "Business that can't be handled remotely. Come with me." Evelyn's heart kicked. "Why?" "Because I don't want to leave you here. And because I think you need to see that there's more to this life than locked rooms and hard choices." "Is that what this is? A vacation?" "It's a chance to breathe for both of us." Evelyn looked down at their joined hands, at the way his thumb traced absent circles on her skin. She should say no, should keep her distance, maintain some semblance of self-preservation, but she was so tired of being careful. "Okay," she said, "I'll go." Dominic's smile was slow and genuine and absolutely devastating. Good. Monaco was a different world. They flew on a private jet, Evelyn's first time on a plane that didn't involve cramped seats and crying babies, and landed in a city that looked like it had been designed by someone who'd never heard the word budget. The hotel was obscenely luxurious, all marble and crystal and staff who moved like ghosts. Their suite had a balcony overlooking the Mediterranean, and Evelyn stood there the first night, watching the lights reflect off the water, feeling like she'd stepped into someone else's life. Dominic came up behind her, close enough that she could feel his warmth. "What do you think?" he asked. "I think this is insane." "Good insane or bad insane?" "I'm not sure yet." He handed her a glass of champagne, and they stood together in comfortable silence, watching the city glitter below them. The next day, Dominic had meetings, so Evelyn explored on her own. She wandered through shops she couldn't afford, even with Dominic's money, sat in cafes drinking coffee that cost more than her old monthly grocery budget, and tried to remember the last time she'd felt this untethered. She met Dominic for dinner at a restaurant so exclusive it didn't have a sign. They ate food that was more art than sustenance, and Evelyn found herself laughing at something he said. Really laughing. Not the polite kind, but the kind that made her ribs hurt. "What?" Dominic asked, smiling. "Nothing. It's just, I didn't expect this." "Expect what?" "To be happy. Here. With you." His expression softened. "Neither did I." That night back at the hotel, something changed. They were on the balcony again, the night air warm against Evelyn's skin, and Dominic was standing close enough that she could count his heartbeats. "Evelyn," he said quietly. She looked up at him, and the world narrowed to just the two of them. "I need to tell you something." "Okay." Us, it's not just about your father anymore. It hasn't been for a while." Her breath caught. "What is it about?" "You, me. The fact that I can't stop thinking about you, even when I should." Evelyn's pulse thundered in her ears. "Dominic, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know." But she did have something to say. Something terrifying and reckless and true. "I feel it too," she whispered. His hands came up to frame her face, and this time when he kissed her, it wasn't gentle or chaste or careful. It was fire and desperation and every unspoken word between them. Evelyn kissed him back like she was drowning, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. She tasted champagne and danger, and something that felt dangerously close to belonging. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dominic pressed his forehead to hers. "Tell me to stop," he said. "No." "Evelyn, I don't want you to stop. I want—" She couldn't finish the sentence, but she didn't have to. He understood. He carried her inside, and Evelyn let herself fall. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the dark, and Evelyn traced the scars on his chest, remnants of a life lived violently. Do you regret it? Dominic asked quietly. No. You should. Probably. She pressed a kiss to his shoulder. But I don't. He pulled her closer, and Evelyn let herself believe, just for a moment, that this could be real, that she could have this, that love didn't always have to hurt. But deep down, she knew the truth. She was falling for a man who lived in shadows, and shadows always demanded a price. She just didn't know yet what that price would be. They stayed in Monaco for 5 days, and in that time, Evelyn felt like she was living someone else's life, someone braver, someone who didn't second-guess every decision, someone who could fall in love with a dangerous man and not feel like she was betraying herself. But on the last morning, reality came crashing back. Evelyn woke to find Dominic already dressed, standing by the window with his phone pressed to his ear. His voice was low, tense, and even though she couldn't make out the words, she could hear the edge in them. When he hung up, she sat up, pulling the sheet around herself. What's wrong? He turned, and the expression on his face made her stomach drop. We need to go back. Why? What happened? Your father made contact again. He says he has the rest of the money. Evelyn's heart kicked. All of it? That's what he claims. Dominic moved to the bed, sitting on the edge. But something feels off. He's being too cooperative, too eager to meet. Maybe he just wants this over with. Or maybe he's planning something. Evelyn reached for his hand, threading their fingers together. Do you trust him? I don't trust anyone. He looked at her, and his expression softened slightly. Except maybe you. The words should have made her happy. Instead, they made her feel guilty in a way she couldn't quite name. They flew back that afternoon, the easy warmth of Monaco replaced by a tension that sat heavy between them. Dominic spent most of the flight on his phone, making arrangements, and Evelyn stared out the window, watching the landscape shift beneath them. By the time they landed back in Charleston, it was dark. Marco picked them up at the airport, his expression grim. He handed Dominic a folder as soon as they were in the car, and Dominic flipped through it with the kind of focus that made Evelyn feel invisible. What is it? She asked. Intel on your father, where he's been, who he's been talking to. Dominic's jaw tightened. He's been in contact with someone in Miami. Multiple calls over the last week. Who? We don't know yet, but whoever it is, they have connections to the Alvarez family. Evelyn had heard that name before, one of Dominic's late-night phone calls, his voice sharp with warning. Is that bad? It's complicated. Dominic closed the folder. The Alvarez family and I have history, not good history. So you think my father's working with them? I think your father's desperate, and desperate people make stupid choices. The meeting was set for 2 days later at a warehouse on the edge of the city. Dominic didn't want Evelyn there, but she insisted. This is my father, she said. I have a right to be there. It could be dangerous. Everything with you is dangerous. Dominic looked at her for a long moment, then sighed. Fine, but you stay in the car with Marco. You don't come inside unless I say so. Deal. The night of the meeting, Evelyn dressed in jeans and a dark sweater, trying to look unremarkable. Dominic was in all black, a gun holstered at his hip, and the sight of it made her mouth go dry. Are you expecting trouble? She asked. I'm always expecting trouble. They drove in silence, the city lights giving way to industrial stretches and empty lots. The warehouse was exactly as grim as Evelyn had imagined. Crumbling brick, broken windows, the kind of place where bad things happened and no one asked questions. Marco parked a block away, engine idling. Dominic turned to Evelyn, his expression serious. Stay here. No matter what you hear, no matter what happens, you stay in this car. Understood? Dominic, promise me. Evelyn swallowed hard. I promise. He leaned over and kissed her, quick and fierce, then got out of the car. 2 other men appeared from a second vehicle, flanking him as they walked toward the warehouse. Evelyn watched them disappear inside, her heart in her throat. Minutes crawled by like hours. Marco sat perfectly still in the driver's seat, his hand resting casually near his own weapon. Evelyn's palms were slick with sweat. Then she heard it. A gunshot. Her blood turned to ice. Marco, stay in the car. But, Miss Carter, I have orders. You stay here. Another shot rang out, followed by shouting, voices she couldn't identify, overlapping and chaotic. Evelyn's hands were shaking. She thought about her promise, about staying put like she'd been told. But the idea of sitting here while Dominic was inside, possibly hurt, possibly... She couldn't finish the thought. "I'm sorry," she said, and threw open the car door. "Miss Carter!" Marco lunged for her, but she was already running. She sprinted toward the warehouse, her breath coming in ragged gasps, every instinct screaming at her to turn back. But she couldn't. She had to know. The side door was ajar, and Evelyn slipped inside, pressing herself against the wall. The interior was dark except for a few flickering overhead lights, casting everything in sickly yellow. Voices echoed from deeper inside. "Told you to come alone." That was her father's voice, strained and panicked. "And I told you I don't take orders from thieves." Dominic, cold, controlled. "I have the money. All of it. Just let me go." "Where is it?" "The truck outside. 5 million in cash. Check it yourself." Evelyn crept forward, staying in the shadows, until she could see them. Her father stood in the center of the space, hands raised, looking smaller and more pathetic than she remembered. Dominic was across from him, gun drawn but pointed at the ground. 2 of Dominic's men flanked him, weapons ready. But there were others too. Men she didn't recognize, positioned around the perimeter, all armed. Her father wasn't alone. "Call off your men," Dominic said quietly. "They're not my men." "Then whose are they?" Before her father could answer, one of the strangers stepped forward, a man in his 50s, well-dressed, with the kind of face that had seen too much and felt too little. "They're mine," the man said. Dominic's expression didn't change, but Evelyn saw his grip tighten on the gun. "Alvarez?" "Varela!" The man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "It's been a while." "Not long enough. I heard you were having trouble collecting a debt. Thought I'd help facilitate." "I don't need your help." "Oh, but you do." Alvarez gestured to Michael. "This man came to me with a proposition. He pays me 3 million, and I make sure you don't kill him. Seems fair, doesn't it?" Dominic's voice was ice. "You think I won't kill you both right here?" "I think you're outnumbered, and I think you're smarter than that." The tension in the room was suffocating. Evelyn pressed herself harder against the wall, trying to make herself invisible, trying not to breathe too loud. "Here's what's going to happen," Alvarez continued. "Michael is going to walk out of here with my men. You're going to take your 5 million and be grateful you got anything at all. And we're going to forget this ever happened. And if I refuse, then we have a problem. And problems tend to get messy." Dominic was silent for a long moment. Then he lowered his gun. "Smart choice," Alvarez said. But as Michael started to move toward the door, Dominic's voice cut through the space. "You think I'm just going to let you walk away?" He wasn't looking at Alvarez. He was looking at Michael. "After everything you've done?" Michael stopped, his face pale. "I paid you. I gave you the money. You gave me half of what you owe, and you brought these people into my business. I didn't have a choice." "Everyone has a choice." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning, and Evelyn's chest tightened. "Let him go, Varela," Alvarez said, his tone sharpening. "You got your money. That's all you're getting tonight." Dominic's gaze finally shifted to Alvarez. "This isn't over." "I know." The 2 men stared at each other, and Evelyn could feel the violence simmering just beneath the surface. Then Alvarez gestured to his men, and they started moving toward the exit, Michael stumbling along with them. Evelyn knew she should stay hidden, should wait until they were all gone. But when her father passed within 10 feet of her hiding spot, something inside her snapped. She stepped out of the shadows. "Dad?" Everyone froze. Michael's face drained of color when he saw her. Dominic's expression went from controlled to furious in half a second. "Evelyn?" Michael's voice cracked. "What are you—" "I told you to stay in the car," Dominic said, his voice deadly quiet. "I know. I'm sorry. I just—" She looked at her father, this man who'd abandoned her, used her, sold her out to save himself. "I needed to see him, one more time." Michael took a step toward her, but one of Alvarez's men blocked him. "Evie, I'm sorry for everything. I never meant for any of this to happen." "You're a coward," Evelyn said, and her voice didn't shake. "You always have been, and I'm done paying for your mistakes. Please, please, just go." She could barely look at him. "Just go." Alvarez smiled, clearly enjoying the drama. How touching, but we really should be leaving. They moved toward the exit, and Evelyn watched her father disappear into the night, probably forever this time. When they were gone, Dominic was on her in 3 strides. What the hell were you thinking? His hands gripped her arms, not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to make his point. I told you to stay in the car. I heard gunshots. You thought wrong. You could have been killed. But I wasn't. That's not the point. He released her, raking a hand through his hair. You can't do that, Evelyn. You can't put yourself in danger because you're worried about me. Why not? You do it for me all the time. That stopped him. He stared at her, something complicated moving across his face. That's different, he said finally. How? Because I know what I'm doing. And because if something happened to you, He broke off, jaw clenched. Evelyn stepped closer, her heart pounding. You what? Dominic closed his eyes briefly, and when he opened them again, they were raw with something that looked like pain. I wouldn't survive it. The confession hung between them, stark and honest. Evelyn reached up and cupped his face in her hands. I'm okay. I'm right here. He pulled her against him, holding her so tightly it almost hurt. Don't do that again. I can't promise that. Evelyn, if you're in danger, I'm not going to just sit in a car and wait. That's not who I am. He pulled back enough to look at her, and despite everything, the anger, the fear, the adrenaline still coursing through them both, he almost smiled. You're impossible. You kidnapped me. You don't get to complain about my personality now. This time he did smile, and it was beautiful and terrible, and everything she'd fallen in love with. The drive back to the estate was quiet. Marco didn't say a word about Evelyn's disobedience, though she could feel his disapproval radiating from the front seat. When they got home, Dominic disappeared into his office to handle the money transfer and whatever else came with deals brokered at gunpoint. Evelyn went to the kitchen, her hands still shaking slightly, and started making tea she didn't want. Maria found her there 20 minutes later. You went with him, Maria said. It wasn't a question. I had to. You could have been hurt. I know. Maria was quiet for a moment, then came to stand beside her. He loves you, you know, whether he said it or not. Evelyn's throat tightened. I know that too. And you love him. Yes. Then why do you look so sad? Evelyn set down her tea, staring at the steam rising from the cup. Because love isn't always enough, and because I'm lying to him. Maria's expression sharpened. About what? Evelyn hadn't meant to say it out loud, hadn't meant to tell anyone, but now that the words were out, she couldn't take them back. The money, she whispered. The $7 million my father stole. I know where it is. Maria went very still. What? I've known for 2 years. He told me before my mother died, made me promise not to tell anyone. Said it was the only thing keeping him alive. And you kept that promise. I didn't think it mattered. I didn't know about Dominic, didn't know my father owed him. And then by the time I found out, I was already here, and Her voice broke. I didn't know how to tell him. I didn't know if he'd believe me or if he'd think I was part of it from the beginning. So you said nothing. I said nothing. Evelyn looked at Maria, tears streaming down her face. And now he's falling in love with someone who's been lying to him since the day we met. Maria's expression was unreadable. Where is it? The money? Offshore account, Caymans. My father gave me the account numbers, the passwords, everything. He said if anything happened to him, I should take it and disappear. She laughed bitterly. Like I'd ever touch his blood money. You need to tell him. I know. Tonight. I can't. Why not? Because once I tell him, everything changes. And I'm not ready for it to change. Not yet. Maria's voice was gentle but firm. The longer you wait, the worse it will be. I know that too. But knowing didn't make it easier. Evelyn didn't tell him that night, or the next day, or the day after that. Instead, she let herself pretend that everything was fine. She cooked dinner, and Dominic told her about his plans to expand into new territory. They made love, and she memorized the way he looked at her like she was something precious. They talked about the future in vague, careful terms, and she tried not to think about the secret burning a hole in her chest. But on the fourth day, Dominic came to her with a ring. They were in the library, late afternoon light slanting through the windows, and he pulled the small velvet box from his pocket with the kind of nervousness she'd never seen from him before. "What is that?" Evelyn asked, though she already knew. "What do you think it is?" Her heart was hammering so hard she thought she might pass out. "Dominic, I know this is insane," he said quickly. "I know we haven't been together long, and I know the way this started was all kinds of wrong. But I also know that I don't want to spend another day pretending this is temporary. You're asking me to marry you. I'm asking you to stay, permanently, with me, as my wife, if you'll have me, or just as my partner, if marriage is too much. I don't care about the title. I just care about you." Evelyn stared at the ring, a simple diamond, elegant and understated and perfect. The kind of ring a man bought when he actually knew the woman he was proposing to. "Say something," Dominic said, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked truly afraid. "I can't," Evelyn whispered. His face fell. "Can't say something or can't marry me?" "Both. Neither. I don't know." She stood, backing away from him. "You're offering me everything and I don't deserve it." "That's not true." "It is. You don't know—" Her voice cracked. "There are things I haven't told you, things you need to know before you ask me this." Dominic set the ring box on the table between them, his expression cautious. "What things?" This was it. The moment where everything either fell apart or somehow, impossibly, stayed together. Evelyn took a deep breath. "The $7 million my father stole from you," she said. "I know where it is." Dominic went very still. "What?" "I've known for 2 years. He told me about it before my mother died, gave me the account information, made me promise to keep it secret." "And you did?" "I did." The silence that followed was deafening. Dominic's expression was unreadable, his body language locked down tight. "You've known this whole time, since before we met." "Yes." "And you said nothing." "I didn't know what to say. At first, I didn't even know about you, about the debt. And then when you took me, I was terrified. I thought if you knew, you'd think I was part of it, that I'd helped him steal from you." "Were you?" The question hit like a slap. "No, I swear I had nothing to do with it. I didn't even know the money existed until my mother was dying." Dominic crossed his arms, his jaw tight. "But you kept it from me. Even after, even when we—" He broke off, looking away. "I'm sorry," Evelyn whispered. "I know it doesn't fix anything, but I'm so sorry." "Why are you telling me now?" "Because you asked me to marry you, and I can't say yes with this hanging over us. I can't start a life with you built on lies." Dominic was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was carefully neutral. "Where is it?" "The money?" Evelyn pulled a folded piece of paper from her pocket, the one she'd been carrying around for days, trying to work up the courage to give him. "It's all here. Account numbers, passwords, everything." He took it without looking at her, unfolded it, scanned the information. Then he refolded it and put it in his own pocket. "Is that it?" Evelyn asked, her voice small. "Aren't you going to yell? Tell me I betrayed you? What would be the point? I deserve it." "Maybe, but I'm tired." He looked at her finally, and his eyes were hollow. "I'm tired of being angry, and I'm tired of people lying to me. Even you." "Dominic, I need time to think." "About what?" "About whether I can forgive this. About whether we can move past it." He picked up the ring box, turned it over in his hands. "About whether I'm an idiot for wanting to." Evelyn's vision blurred. "I love you." "I know." He said it softly, sadly. "I love you too. That's the problem." He walked out of the library, leaving Evelyn standing there with her heart in pieces. That night, Dominic didn't come to bed. Evelyn lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling, replaying their conversation over and over. She'd done the right thing, so why did it feel like she'd just destroyed everything? The next morning, Maria came to her room with breakfast and a carefully neutral expression. "He left early," Maria said. "Business in the city. He said he'd be back tonight. Did he say anything else?" "No, miss." Evelyn pushed the food around her plate, her stomach too knotted to eat. "Maria, do you think he'll forgive me?" Maria sat on the edge of the bed, her expression kind. "I think Mr. Varela is a man who's been betrayed many times, by family, by business partners, by people he trusted. And I think he's terrified of being betrayed by you. I didn't betray him. Didn't you? The word stung. I was trying to protect myself. I understand that, but from his perspective, you kept a secret that could have resolved everything months ago. You let him believe your father had nothing, that there was no way to get the money back, while all along you held the key. I didn't know if I could trust him. And now he doesn't know if he can trust you. Evelyn closed her eyes, feeling the weight of her choices crushing down. What do I do? You wait. You give him time, and you hope that his love for you is stronger than his fear. So Evelyn waited. Dominic came back that night, but he was distant, polite, like they were strangers sharing a house. He worked in his office until late, ate dinner alone, and slept in one of the guest rooms. The pattern continued for 3 days. On the 4th day, Evelyn found him in the library again, staring out the window at the rain. "We need to talk," she said. He didn't turn around. "I know. Are you going to forgive me?" "I'm trying. But you haven't decided yet." "No." Evelyn moved closer, her heart in her throat. "What can I do to make this right?" "I don't know if you can." The honesty of it broke something inside her. "Then I'll leave." That got his attention. He turned, his expression sharp. "What? If you can't forgive me, if you can't trust me, then there's no point in me staying. I'll go. You keep the money, I'll disappear, and we both move on." "That's not what I want." "Then what do you want?" Dominic crossed the distance between them in 2 strides, his hands coming up to frame her face. "I want you to tell me you won't do this again. That if something comes up, something important, you'll tell me instead of keeping it to yourself out of fear." "I will. I promise. I want to believe you." "So believe me." He searched her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. "I'm trying, Evelyn. I'm really trying, but trust doesn't just happen because we want it to." "I know. I need time." "How much time?" "I don't know." Evelyn's eyes burned, but she refused to cry. "Okay. Take all the time you need. I'll be here." Dominic kissed her then, soft, tentative, like he was testing whether they still fit together. They did, but there was a crack now, running through the foundation of what they'd built. And Evelyn didn't know if it would heal or break them apart. The crack didn't heal, not right away. For 2 weeks, Evelyn and Dominic existed in a strange limbo, together but not quite. Close, but with a careful distance neither of them knew how to bridge. They still ate dinner together most nights, still talked about safe things like the weather or what Maria was planning for the garden. But the easy intimacy they'd found in Monaco felt like a lifetime ago, and the ring stayed tucked away in Dominic's desk drawer, unmentioned and impossible to forget. Evelyn tried to be patient, tried to give him the space he needed, but patience had never been her strong suit, and the waiting was eating her alive. She threw herself into routines to keep from falling apart. She cooked elaborate meals, reorganized the pantry twice, started reading books she'd abandoned halfway through because she couldn't focus. At night, she lay alone in a bed that had once felt like theirs and tried not to think about how quickly everything had unraveled. On the 15th day, something shifted. Evelyn was in the kitchen, making bread because kneading dough was the only thing that kept her hands from shaking when Dominic appeared in the doorway. He looked tired, more tired than she'd ever seen him, with shadows under his eyes and tension in every line of his body. "Can we talk?" he asked. Evelyn's heart jumped into her throat. Of course. He came into the kitchen but didn't sit, just leaned against the counter with his arms crossed. "I've been thinking about what you said, about the money, about why you kept it secret." "Okay. And I understand it. I do. You were scared. You didn't know me. You were trying to survive." He paused, his jaw working. "But understanding it doesn't make it hurt less." Evelyn set down the dough, wiping flour from her hands. "I know. The thing is, Evelyn, I've spent my entire life surrounded by people who lie to me, who use me, who take what they want and disappear. And I told myself I'd never let anyone get close enough to do that again." He looked at her, and the pain in his eyes was devastating. "But then you happened, and I let you in, and now I have to decide if I can live with the fact that you lied too." "I'm not like them," Evelyn said, her voice breaking. "I'm not using you. I never was." "I want to believe that." "Then believe it." Dominic was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I accessed the account. The one you gave me. Evelyn's stomach dropped. And? The money's there. All 7 million, exactly where you said it would be. I wouldn't have lied about that. I know, that's what makes this so hard. He rubbed a hand over his face. You told me the truth when it mattered. You gave me something your father spent 15 years trying to hide. You could have kept it to yourself, could have waited until you were gone and taken it. But you didn't. Because I love you, I know that too. He moved closer, close enough that she could see the exhaustion in every line of his face. But love isn't always enough, Evelyn. Sometimes trust matters more. And I don't know if I can trust you again. The words hit like a knife to the chest. Evelyn felt tears spill over, hot and fast, and she didn't bother wiping them away. So that's it? We're done? I didn't say that. Then what are you saying? Dominic reached out and cupped her face, his touch gentle despite everything. I'm saying I need you to make a choice. Not for me. For yourself. What choice? You can stay here with me, and we can try to rebuild this. It won't be easy, and I can't promise I'll get over it quickly. But I'm willing to try if you are. He paused. Or you can leave. I'll give you half the money, 3.5 million. Enough to start over anywhere you want. No strings, no conditions. You walk away, and I won't stop you. Evelyn stared at him. You'd really do that? Yes. Why? Because you deserve the choice. You deserve to decide what kind of life you want without me holding you hostage. Financially, emotionally, any of it. His thumb brushed away her tears. I took that choice from you once. I won't do it again. Evelyn's chest felt like it was caving in. And if I choose to stay, then we start over, really start over. No more secrets, no more half-truths. We build something real, or we don't build anything at all. She searched his face, looking for some hint of what he wanted her to say, but he kept his expression carefully neutral. This was her choice, hers alone. And the terrifying part was that she didn't know what to do. Evelyn walked for hours that night, circling the estate grounds in the dark, trying to untangle the mess in her head. The smart choice was obvious. Take the money and run. Build a life somewhere far away from mafia politics and men who carried guns like accessories. Find someone normal, someone safe, someone who didn't make her heart race with equal parts fear and desire. But when she tried to picture that life, the quiet apartment, the ordinary job, the safe, predictable future, it felt like suffocating. Because the truth she'd been avoiding for weeks was this. She didn't want safe anymore. She wanted Dominic. Wanted the chaos and the intensity and the way he looked at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. Wanted the fights and the reconciliations and the terrifying, beautiful reality of loving someone who would burn the world down to keep her safe. She just didn't know if wanting it was enough to make it work. By the time she made it back to the house, dawn was breaking over the horizon. She found Maria in the kitchen, already starting coffee. Couldn't sleep? Maria asked. Couldn't think, Evelyn corrected. She sank into a chair, exhausted. He's giving me a choice, stay or go. I know, he told me. What do you think I should do? Maria poured 2 cups of coffee and sat across from her. I think you already know what you're going to do. You're just scared to admit it. I'm terrified. Good. That means it matters. Evelyn wrapped her hands around the warm mug. What if I choose wrong? Then you choose wrong, but at least you chose. Maria's expression softened. You've spent your whole life letting other people make decisions for you, miss. Your father, your mother, Daniel, even Mr. Varela at the beginning. Maybe it's time you decided what you want, consequences be damned. And if what I want is him, then you stay, and you fight for it, and you accept that love isn't perfect or easy or guaranteed. It's just worth it. Evelyn looked at this woman who'd shown her more kindness than she deserved and felt something settle in her chest. How did you get so wise? Maria smiled. I've been watching Mr. Varela make terrible decisions for 15 years. You learn things. When Dominic came downstairs an hour later, Evelyn was waiting for him in his office. She'd showered, changed into clean clothes, and tried to make herself look less like someone who'd spent the night unraveling. He stopped in the doorway when he saw her. Have you decided? Yes. And? Evelyn stood, her hands trembling slightly. I'm staying. Something flickered across his face. Relief, maybe? Or fear? Are you sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. She moved closer. I love you, Dominic, and I know I hurt you, and I know it's going to take time to fix that. But I want to try. I want to build something real with you, even if it's messy and complicated and terrifying. It will be all of those things. I know. He studied her for a long moment. Then he said, There's something I need to tell you. Evelyn's stomach dropped. What? I transferred the money back. What money? All of it, the $7 million. I put it in an account under your name. Evelyn stared at him. Why would you do that? Because it was never about the money. Dominic moved to his desk, pulled out a folder, and handed it to her. It was about your father paying for what he did. And he has. He gave me $2 million, you gave me the location of the rest, and that's enough. But the account is yours, Evelyn. Do whatever you want with it. Keep it, donate it, burn it. I don't care. I just need you to understand that I'm not keeping you here because of money or debt or anything your father did. I'm asking you to stay because I want you here, because I choose you. Evelyn's vision blurred. You're insane. Probably. That's $7 million. I know. And you're just giving it to me. Yes. Why? Dominic closed the distance between them, his hands coming up to frame her face. Because I need you to know that this is real, that what I feel for you has nothing to do with your father or the past or anything except the fact that you walked into my life and turned it upside down, and I don't want to go back to how things were before. Evelyn couldn't hold back the tears anymore. They spilled over, hot and fast, and she didn't care. I don't deserve this. Neither do I, but here we are. She kissed him then, desperate and fierce, pouring everything she couldn't say into the contact. And when they broke apart, both breathing hard, she whispered, I'm still scared. So am I. What if we mess this up? Then we mess it up together? He pressed his forehead to hers. But we try, Evelyn. We really try. Okay, she breathed. Okay. The rebuilding wasn't easy. There were still moments when Dominic pulled away, when the hurt resurfaced and he couldn't quite look at her. There were nights when Evelyn woke up panicking, convinced she'd made the wrong choice, that she should have run when she had the chance. But there were good moments, too. Like the morning Dominic asked her to teach him how to make her mother's pasta recipe, and they ended up covered in flour and laughing until their sides hurt. Or the night he found her crying in the library over a book and held her until she could breathe again, without explanation. Or the afternoon they drove to the coast with no destination in mind and sat on the beach until sunset, talking about nothing and everything. Slowly, carefully, they stitched themselves back together. 3 months after Evelyn's confession, Dominic came to her with the ring again. They were on the balcony of his bedroom, watching thunderclouds roll in over the estate, and he pulled the small velvet box from his pocket with less nervousness this time. I'm going to ask you again, he said, and you can say no. You can say you need more time, but I need you to know that I've forgiven you, completely, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving that to you. Evelyn looked at the ring, the same one he'd shown her months ago, and felt her heart do something complicated in her chest. You forgave me? A while ago, actually. I was just waiting for the right moment to tell you. And this is the right moment? I don't know, but I'm tired of waiting for perfect. He opened the box. Marry me, Evelyn. Not because you feel like you owe me, not because you're trying to make up for the past. Marry me because you want to. Evelyn took the ring from the box and turned it over in her hands, watching the light catch on the diamond. She thought about everything that had brought her here. The betrayal, the fear, the choice to stay when leaving would have been easier. She thought about the man in front of her, flawed and dangerous and trying so hard to be better than he was. And she thought about what Maria had said, that love wasn't perfect or easy or guaranteed. It was just worth it. Yes, she said. Dominic's smile was slow and beautiful and absolutely devastating. Yeah? Yeah. She slipped the ring onto her finger. But I have conditions. Of course you do. I want a small wedding. Just us, Maria, Marco, maybe a handful of other people. Nothing like... She stopped, the memory of that other wedding still raw. Nothing like the one that never happened, Dominic finished. Agreed. And I want to do something with the money, something good. Like what? I don't know yet, but I can't just keep $7 million and pretend it's normal. Dominic pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her waist. We'll figure it out together. Together, Evelyn echoed, and let herself believe it. They got married 6 weeks later in the estate's garden, with Maria crying happy tears and Marco standing as Dominic's best man despite his protests that he didn't do emotions. The ceremony was simple, almost painfully so, and Evelyn wore a dress that cost 1/10 of what her first wedding dress had. It was perfect. Afterward, over champagne and cake that Evelyn had insisted on making herself, Maria pulled her aside. You look happy, miss. I am. And she meant it. I'm terrified and uncertain and completely unprepared for this, but I'm happy. Good. You deserve it. Evelyn hugged her, this woman who'd been more of a mother to her in 6 months than anyone had in years. Thank you for everything. Just promise me you'll keep him honest, Maria said, pulling back. He needs someone who isn't afraid to call him on his nonsense. I can do that. Evelyn kept her promise about the money. After months of research and arguments and late-night planning sessions with Dominic, they established a foundation focused on helping children who'd lost parents to violence or crime. It was messy work, complicated by Dominic's reputation and the scrutiny that came with it, but it felt right in a way nothing else had. They named it after Evelyn's mother. The first project they funded was a scholarship program for kids aging out of foster care. The second was a legal aid clinic for families dealing with the aftermath of gang violence. By the end of the first year, they distributed nearly $4 million, and Evelyn found herself sitting in board meetings and grant interviews, fighting for kids who reminded her of herself. Lost, scared, trying to survive in a world that felt too big and too cruel. Dominic supported her in ways she hadn't expected. He showed up to fundraisers, wrote checks without being asked, and used his connections to open doors that would have stayed closed for someone with her background. People whispered about it, about the crime boss turned philanthropist, about the irony of blood money funding children's programs. But Evelyn stopped caring about the whispers. Let them talk. She was doing something that mattered, but the past had a way of catching up, even when you tried to outrun it. It happened on a Tuesday, 14 months after their wedding. Evelyn was in the foundation office, reviewing applications, when her phone rang with a number she didn't recognize. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello? Evie. Her father's voice rough and strained. Don't hang up. Her blood went cold. How did you get this number? I need to talk to you, please. It's important. We have nothing to talk about. It's about Daniel. Evelyn's hand tightened on the phone. She hadn't heard that name in over a year, hadn't let herself think about him. What about him? He's dead. The world tilted. Evelyn sat down hard in her chair, her breath coming too fast. What? They found him in the Caymans 3 days ago. Bullet to the head. Police are calling it a robbery, but we both know that's not what it was. Evelyn's mind raced. Who killed him? I don't know. But Evie, I think whoever did it might come after you next. Daniel knew things. About me, about the money, about you. If someone's cleaning up loose ends, stop. Evelyn's voice was shaking. Stop calling me. Stop trying to protect me. You lost that right a long time ago. Evie, please. She hung up. For a long moment, she just sat there, staring at her phone, trying to process what she'd just heard. Daniel was dead. The man who'd lied to her, used her, left her at the altar, he was gone. She should have felt something, relief, maybe, or vindication, but all she felt was numb. When she told Dominic that night, his reaction was immediate and cold. I didn't order it, he said, but I know who did. Who? Alvarez. He's been cleaning house, tying up loose ends from that deal with your father. Daniel was one of them. Evelyn's stomach turned. And my father thinks I might be next. He's not wrong. So what do we do? Dominic's expression hardened. I handle it. Dominic, I'm not letting anyone touch you, Evelyn. I don't care who they are or what they think they're owed. You're mine, and I protect what's mine. The possessiveness should have bothered her. Instead, it made her feel safe. Be careful, she whispered. Always. The war with Alvarez was quiet and brutal. Evelyn didn't see most of it. Dominic kept her insulated from the worst of it. But she saw the aftermath. The tension in his shoulders, the late-night phone calls, the way Marco started carrying 2 guns instead of 1. It lasted 3 weeks. And then one morning, Dominic came to breakfast and told her it was over. Alvarez is dead, he said calmly, like he was discussing the weather. His organization is scattered. You're safe. Evelyn set down her coffee cup, her hands trembling slightly. Did you kill him? Does it matter? Yes. Dominic looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, No, but I gave the order. Evelyn absorbed this, the weight of it settling in her chest. This was who he was, who he would always be. A man who solved problems with violence, who operated in a world where mercy was weakness and survival meant being willing to destroy anyone who threatened what you loved. And she'd chosen to love him anyway. Okay, she said finally. Okay, I don't like it. I'll probably never like it, but I understand why you did it. She reached across the table and took his hand, and I'm grateful you kept me safe. Dominic's expression softened. I'd do anything to keep you safe. I know. That's what scares me. Life settled after that into something resembling normal, or at least their version of normal. Evelyn ran the foundation, Dominic ran his empire, and they navigated the complicated space between those two worlds with varying degrees of success. There were still hard days. Days when Evelyn woke up and wondered who she'd become. Whether the girl who'd once dreamed of a simple life would recognize the woman she was now. Days when Dominic pulled away, the weight of his choices pressing down until she could see him struggling to breathe under it. But there were good days, too. More good days than bad, actually. Like the afternoon Evelyn came home to find Dominic in the kitchen, attempting to make her mother's bread recipe and failing spectacularly. Or the night they slow danced in the library to music that only they could hear. Or the morning she told him she was pregnant and he cried, actually cried, holding her like she was the most precious thing in the world. They had a daughter 9 months later. Dark hair like Dominic's, stubborn like Evelyn. They named her Grace, after Evelyn's mother, and watching Dominic hold her for the first time, this dangerous man reduced to tears by a 6-pound baby, Evelyn understood something fundamental about love. It didn't erase the past, didn't make the bad choices good or the violence justifiable, but it gave you a reason to try to be better, to build something worth protecting, even if you didn't always succeed. On Grace's first birthday, Evelyn found herself standing in the garden where they'd gotten married, watching Dominic push their daughter on a swing while Maria looked on with tears in her eyes. You did good, miss, Maria said quietly. We did good, Evelyn corrected. All of us. He's different now, softer. He's still Dominic. Yes, but he's your Dominic. That makes all the difference. Evelyn thought about the woman she'd been 2 years ago, standing in a bridal suite, waiting for a groom who would never come, her whole life about to implode. She thought about the fear and the anger and the choice she'd made to stay when leaving would have been easier. And she realized something that felt like wisdom, hard-earned and true. Sometimes the best things in life came from the worst beginnings. Sometimes love meant choosing someone despite their flaws, despite the danger, despite every rational reason to walk away. Sometimes it meant building something beautiful out of broken pieces and calling it home. That night, after Grace was asleep and the house had settled into quiet, Evelyn found Dominic on their bedroom balcony. He pulled her into his arms, and they stood there in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Do you ever regret it? He asked. Choosing this life? Every Tuesday, Evelyn said, and felt him laugh against her hair. But then Wednesday comes, and I remember why I stayed. And why's that? She turned in his arms to look at him. This man who'd stolen her from a wedding and somehow given her everything she didn't know she wanted. Because you're worth it. We're worth it. And because love isn't about perfect choices or easy answers. It's about showing up, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Dominic kissed her, soft and slow, and Evelyn tasted everything they'd survived and everything they still had to face. I love you, he said. I know, I love you too. Even though I'm terrible? Especially because you're terrible, she smiled. Someone has to keep you honest. He laughed again, and the sound was warm and real, and everything she'd learned to build her life around. Because in the end, Evelyn understood something her mother had tried to teach her years ago. Life wasn't about finding someone perfect. It was about finding someone whose flaws you could live with, whose darkness you could hold without being consumed by it, whose love was worth the risk of breaking. And Dominic Varela, criminal, killer, father, husband, was exactly that person for her. Flawed, dangerous, impossible, and utterly, completely hers. The story of Evelyn Carter didn't end with a perfect wedding or a fairy tale resolution. It ended with a choice she made every single day to stay, to fight, to love someone who didn't deserve her but tried anyway. It ended with a daughter who would grow up knowing that families were complicated, that love was messy, and that sometimes the people who saved you were also the ones who destroyed you first. It ended with grace, both the child and the concept, and the understanding that redemption wasn't about erasing the past. It was about building a future worth fighting for, one imperfect day at a time. And in a world built on blood and power and carefully constructed lies, that was the most honest thing Evelyn had ever known.